Hello Bio20 and welcome to Homeostasis with Water. This is going to be another lesson in the chapter of excretion. We have learned the kidney, we have learned the nephron, we have learned absorption and secretion. So now we're kind of learning about why do we need to maintain that absorption and secretion. And one of them is to maintain water balance. So the amount of water reabsorbed from the nephron influences two very important parts of our blood. One is the volume. So if you think about back to blood pressure, back in chapter 8, when we learned what is blood pressure, a lot of it has to be regulated by the reabsorption of water from our nephron. The other one is the concentration of plasma solutes or osmosis. So what we're talking about here is your salt concentrations, your different ion concentrations found in your blood, those kinds of things. We don't want too much of it, we don't want too little of it, so we have to balance it out. So regulating water reabsorption is done by our brain. So here's a picture of our brain. This is something we learned a lot about in Bio 30. And what we talk about here is there's different parts to your brain. Inside the hypothalamus, which is this piece right here, this little piece right here, the hypothalamus has something in it called osmoreceptors. Osmo meaning water, receptors meaning something that gets a signal. So these cells are located deep within the hypothalamus. So this part of your brain right here is known as the limbic system, okay? It's like the fight or flight. It's what happens when you get scared. This part is all autonomic, meaning it does its work without us having to consider anything. So the hypothalamus does a ton of regulation in our body. So what it does is when our blood does not have enough osmotic pressure, there's not enough water within our blood, this sends a cascading motion to our hypothalamus and it is sensitive to this lack of pressure. So when we become too dehydrated, the hypothalamus sends an impulse to the pituitary gland. This is the pituitary gland right here. And the pituitary gland releases something called the antidiuretic hormone, or ADH. The antidiuretic hormone means against diuresis, meaning excessive urine production. So if you think about you drink a ton of water, you have to use the bathroom a lot. All right. Imagine you didn't drink a lot of water and you still had to use the bathroom a lot. That's a problem. Now we're getting rid of all this excess water in your body that you're not replacing. So you're dehydrating yourself. So ADH, or antidiuretic hormone, its job is to be against excessive urine production. So it stops us from getting rid of water out of our body when we need it for our blood. So it prevents us from making too much urine, and it leads to what we call water retention, meaning we retain or keep water in our body. What happens is ADH is released from the pituitary gland. It travels through our blood to the kidneys where it increases permeability. So permeability just means the ability for things to move across a membrane, okay? So it increases the permeability and in the collecting duct and the distal tubule, so right at the end of the nephron. And what it does is it makes it really easy for water to be reabsorbed back into the blood. So as water is passing through the nephron, we've collected a little bit here or there. When we get to the end, the body might say, hey, we don't have enough water in the blood. ADH will go to the kidney and say, hey, release that water from the kidney or from the nephron so we can put it back into the blood. So that's how we regulate water. Now, we also have an issue where some people cannot regulate ADH. They have a disease or a pituitary gland problem that they cannot have ADH regulated. They end up having something called diabetes insipidus, which essentially is a form of diabetes that means we cannot control the antidiuretic hormone. So what happens is our body thinks it has this hormone, or is lacking this hormone, I should say, and we end up excessively urinating out liquid all day long, and it makes us extremely dehydrated. There are also different types of things out there that have diuretics as part of them. So a diuretic is something that tricks our brain into thinking that the hormone is present, so ADH is present, and that it's okay to get rid of water. So if you drink a lot of things that have sugars or caffeines or anything like that, you will urinate a lot more because your body thinks that ADH is doing its job when it's not. Another way that we reabsorb water is through a hormone called aldosterone. Now, I'm not going to get into it in this video. I'm going to post this video for you to watch. It's a little bit more in depth than what you need to know, but what you do need to know is how does aldosterone pull water back into the kidney? So it's going to talk a lot about sodium, and it moves sodium into the bloodstream and water follows, okay? And you're also going to learn on how it helps increase blood pressure. So that's what you're going to watch in this video. The key one for me, for your understanding, is the ADH, so antidiuretic hormone. So again, water reabsorption. Where does it come from? Distal tubule collecting duct when ADH is present. So make sure you have your notes down. If you have any questions, please let me know.